Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of Hotel Tech Unwrapped. The purpose of this podcast is to simplify hospitality technology to empower decision makers generate a greater return on their technology investment. My name is Denis Ahern.
And my name is Helena O'Brien.
And this week we're focusing on IoT technology in hospitality. So, Helena, looking forward to today's session. Anything come up for you since our last podcast episode?
Anything come up for me? Actually, I've got fantastic feedback on our podcast. What I found really interesting was people I've spoken with have simply said, I didn't realize it was so easy to add something like casting to my existing TV and transform my guest experience. And, then when you're chatting with them about how easy it is to deploy, that it doesn't take weeks, it just takes days, etc. They think it's fantastic, and this solution for them ultimately is going to be something they can give their guests quite quickly and quite quickly, efficiently, and it's not costing the earth. So it's been really positive. What about you?
Yeah, similar, and I think some people are surprised about the level of adoption. I've had quite a few people say that their experience with casting while traveling has been hit and miss, which is interesting. It's possible to do as well, and obviously for that experience to be like consistent and reliable for sure. Also, lots of people reporting that they thought they had casting when they traveled, but really they were accessing like a Netflix app on a standard home TV in a hotel, and that they could see other people's profiles and data, etc. So, yeah, a big mix. I think that casting, though, in general, or this ability to bring your own device and share your own content onto a TV screen in a hotel room, like definitely is that emerging trend and is very much a mainstream requirement at the moment. I think the area we're looking at today in IoT is a very interesting one because it's very broad. There is a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of options. So we will do our best to put some structure on this for people and hopefully get people thinking about how can they implement some of this technology to achieve an outcome that they're looking to achieve at the moment.
Yeah. I'm very excited about today's podcast, as you know. I'm fascinated by the world of IoT. I think it ultimately will help people in their homes, but also businesses, in particular the hospitality industry, transform the experiences, but also the cost savings, the efficiency, etc., that goes with it. So I think what we'll do is kick off. Without further ado, as they say, we'll kick off. So we're using 3 letters, IoT. But we need to explain what IoT is. So IoT is the Internet of Things. That is what it is known as, right? So Denis, can you explain to everybody who's listening, what is IoT and what ultimately does it exist for? Why does it exist?
Yeah, I think it's a good place to start, right? So as you say, it's the Internet of Things. It refers to a vast, network of products that connect to the internet and provide many different functions. And these are products that sit outside of your typical kind of mainstream laptop and smartphone. So an example of an IoT device would be like the smartwatch that you wear, the Fitbits, the Whoops, etc. Your Chromecast device in your home, your voice assistant, loads of different types of technology. They communicate through many different protocols. Ultimately, they exist to deliver a lot more flexibility in how you deploy technology. Right? Add a lot more means of communication so that you don't have to just communicate over Wi-Fi. They are brilliant at collecting data. They are brilliant to deploy in places you can't put cables, etc. So it really enhances the options that you have in terms of deployment of technology to achieve an outcome that you want. And the simplest way to think about it is in your home. If you do use a voice assistant, or you do use a Chromecast, or you wear a wearable, a watch, for example, those enhance or add to the quality of your life because they serve a function that you're looking to meet. And so there is lots of reasons for their existence, but it's really about enhancing that overall connected kind of smart experience of the world.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's a great summary. Thank you very much. for anybody who's listening that is trying to identify any IoT devices that they have in their home, a good example that I have that I'm just going to put out there now before we move on to the hospitality industry is we have not to mention brands, but I'll mention it purely because it's the easiest way to explain it. We have an Alexa in our home. And I have a little girl who is very enthusiastic about researching. And she will ask Alexa to explain to her the history of the Greek gods, for example. And Alexa can give her an overview of what that is. And then she can ask Alexa further questions to go more in depth. And she loves it. While for me, it could be setting a timer while the dinner's on. So this technology exists and it's part of our everyday life. But the purpose of this podcast is to help identify and educate listeners on where IoT can actually assist with transforming the guest experience, the employee experience, and as you just mentioned a while ago, Denis, allowing owners, operators, managers make more data-driven, informed decisions. So, Denis,
yeah, it's a great example. Yeah,
yeah,
brilliant, brilliant to
Alexa's
hear.
very strong in our house.
Yeah, very good.
She answers all the questions I don't have the answers to. So
Yes.
what would be great is, can we talk about a typical example within a hotel? So a good use case scenario within a hotel that maybe is a current trend for the operators and the guests in 2024.
Yeah, so I think that IoT and hospitality has been around actually for a long time, and I think that IoT has been spoken about a lot too, and for us a big challenge here is trying to simplify it so people can understand, okay, where is it in use already, and then what are the opportunities. So door access control, I think, is the most common use of IoT right now in hospitality. So you can have online door locks. So there's many different brands out there, and they give you benefits such as integrating with an application so that the guest can open their door with their phone, for example. And those are devices that are battery operated, of course, because you can't run a cable to them, and they communicate on a near field communication like protocol. So a low energy protocol, which could be BLE, it could be Zigbee. There's many different types, right? So
what's VLE? Sorry, Denis.
so Bluetooth Low Energy, for example,
Okay.
would be one means of communication. That's an alternative to Wi-Fi. So Wi-Fi typically a Wi-Fi device would generally have a much higher power consumption. So would generally need a power supply to the unit, whereas something running on BLE could run on battery for a very long time, and then that gives you the flexibility where you don't want to have a cable to install something that serves a purpose in your building. So door access control would be the most common. The casting we discussed the last day, an external Chromecast on the back of a TV would be an IoT device. So a very common use case. I think more and more what's happening then is like stuff we think about in our homes. So for monitoring the environment, like noise, temperature, light, humidity, etc. That is starting to become much more mainstream in hospitality now, where solutions are being deployed that can achieve greater energy efficiency. So they can manage heating and cooling systems and make those systems more intelligent to be operate in a way that's just more efficient, and just monitoring the environment overall. Are fire doors, are they closed? Are refrigeration doors closed? These kinds of applications. So that kind of monitoring and control of the environment, I would say, is becoming a lot more the use case in hospitality. And I would say, interestingly, the voice assistant piece that you mentioned for your home, there is technology out there designed for hotels where you have a voice assistant during your stay in the hotel. But of course, another challenge or another opportunity is building networks that facilitates the guest to bring their voice assistant connected to the network and replicate that home experience. So you have there's a lot going on in there. As I say, IoT is fast, but if you were to three most common, I would say door access, I would say casting technology, and then technology that monitors and controls the actual environment.
Okay. It's interesting you mention bringing technology from home to your guest room, or as the guest bringing it to your hotel to have for your own convenience. I read an article recently that said that is a real emerging trend at the moment,
Yeah.
because for a lot of people, that potentially is their alarm clock. That
Okay.
is their radio. It has a multitude of uses. So it's technology that we're so used to, and it's so convenient that ultimately it makes sense to take it from your home and want to take it on holidays with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, one thing I didn't mention is the smart lighting solutions that you're seeing now more and more common in
Yeah.
hospitality as well. So different forms of mood lighting and lighting control. You even now have circadian lighting, it's called, where it kind of matches the circadian rhythm of the local area, and it's a really interesting area as well. And I suppose it's all merging into this idea we've spoken about before, which is the digital guest journey.
Yeah.
Where you can bring more and more features and more data into a digital interface for a guest so they can customize their stay, but
Hmm.
they can also just be more informed as well about, what is
Hmm.
the temperature in their room and do they want to adjust that? And yeah, I think the lighting piece is actually a very interesting one when you think about well-being, especially with this whole leisure
Yeah.
trend, business and leisure, where you might be staying somewhere for a longer period of time. You might be
Hmm.
working in that hotel room or in a co-working space in that environment, and it's just facilitating, I think, more comfortable and more like kind of smarter stays that are getting closer and closer to the home experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I was actually going to touch on the lighting, so you've just covered that for me. Thank you very
Right.
much. What in all the research I have done around IoT and all the learnings that I have had, what I find so fascinating is that IoT is so much more than any one person could expect it to
Yeah,
be.
absolutely.
It allows you to place sensors in parts of your property where the cabling infrastructure may not be possible, right? And when this first came to my attention, um, what was identified as a real opportunity for me is around the area of period buildings. So
Oh
in
yeah.
Ireland, for example, as you know, we have a lot of stunning period properties. Some are
Yeah.
castles, some are manor houses, etc. Right? And I know from working in hospitality, and I know from dealing with our own customers, that um, one of the biggest challenges you have in a period building is around cabling and technology because of the infrastructure of the building already.
Yeah.
Um, and you touched on Bluetooth and battery operated, but I think it would be great um, to just expand further on what this technology can do for the likes of a period building,
Mm.
um, from the guest experience to the employee experience, ultimately what it can do to support energy efficiency, because ultimately those areas are so important, because if we can save on our energy and our operational efficiency, ultimately we're saving on costs as well. So
Yeah.
if you could offer some insight, that would be super.
Yeah, it's a great example, actually. I think that's one of the huge benefits of IoT in general is its flexibility. It's also a challenge because when you're trying to make something as adaptable as IoT generally is,
Hmm.
trying to standardize it as well can be a challenge, right? But if you think about a period building, right, um, the modern, say, first of all, hospitality grade Wi-Fi networks have IoT communication protocols and an IoT kind of ecosystem built into the Wi-Fi access point. That's
Okay.
really important as a starting point, because if you start deploying IoT devices around the building, then you
Hmm.
can connect them onto the main Wi-Fi network and not have to worry about building a separate network for IoT communications. Okay, so as we know, getting cables to locations is really challenging. So
Yeah.
then that means you've one single central managed network that is connecting everything in the building. Okay, so
Hmm.
that already exists, and is absolutely possible today for any hotelier. Then you think about we spoke about door locks, for example. If you wanted to bring your door access for your guest rooms in the period building online, then you could install an online compatible door lock from a manufacturer, connect it through the Wi-Fi network, and now that device is online. So
Mhm.
what can you do with that? Well, then you're into operational efficiencies as well, because any maintenance issues will be flagged proactively. Battery status, etc., if the batteries need to be changed on the door locks, and then the ability to bring that into the digital guest journey. So, many hotel brands have their own application, or they're using third-party applications, whether they're native or like progressive web applications. And one of the biggest demands for guests from the research is the ability to open the door with your phone, right? So
Yeah.
contactless check-in, open your door with your phone, and contactless checkout. Those three things are kind of your foundation of a more digital journey. Those are the three most common things that a guest will look for.
Yeah.
So in a period building, then you can achieve that, right?
Mm.
Then as you move forward, you can put in sensors around the building to detect occupancy, humidity, air quality, temperature,
Mhm.
etc. And so they can be all battery operated as well, operating on a low powered IoT communication protocol. And you can integrate them then with your maybe building management system, or depending on, there's lots of different solutions out there as it comes to managing the environment. So heating, cooling, air changeover, etc. But
Yeah.
the main point would be that once you have these IoT devices around the building, they're connected to the network. You now have the data. You have an API. You can communicate with other systems. You can also like have physical interconnects as well in comms rooms between stuff, and it just gives you options. Those options will allow you to make it a more comfortable environment for the guest. It will allow you to reduce your energy consumption and your carbon footprint. Also, just simply measure your energy consumption and be able to, we all have our challenges in our businesses to
Yeah.
measure our consumption right now and our carbon footprint. And we
Mm.
all want to make improvements, but we need to be measuring against a baseline.
Yeah.
And that can be challenging. So other things like even water flow, like detecting leaks in buildings,
Mm.
those kind of things wouldn't be possible to do without IoT technology.
Mm.
So I think there's huge opportunity. I would say that, retrofit, just like IoT is super flexible when you talk about retrofit, whether it's a standard kind of a building or a period or a listed building.
Mhm.
Loads of options, and you can achieve really good outcomes within the constraints that you will have.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when I think it was yourself actually told me about measuring the water flow. And
Mm.
as you know, listeners might not know, but as you know, I worked in the hospitality sector for over 16 years. And two of the properties that I worked in had water leaks. And how that was discovered was by receiving a very large water bill. So then you have to
Okay.
try
Yeah.
and determine where
Yeah.
that's coming from. And that
Yeah.
was long before IoT sensors. So that immediately for me was like, wow, if I was a property that's experiencing issues with water leaks, this is a very quick solution to help uh, identify it earlier um,
Yeah.
and react. Do you know what I mean? You're
Yeah.
proactive. You're not being reactive.
Absolutely. And
And I
I
think
would say then
that's
that's
massive.
a great example. And even if you're not measuring at a minute level, right, when it comes to water or
Yeah,
gas or electricity, right, you still have technology now that you can just put into your distribution point to
yeah,
measure the overall consumption live, right, and measure that against like your typical expectations, and to flag then if there's any anomalies in real time. And again, that can be super useful. I've experienced this water leak issue before myself.
okay,
My mom has a pub and a shop, and has had a number of these, and it's challenging, like especially
yeah,
when you have an old piping network, and it's
yep,
really sort of it's really deflating for the business owner when they get this really massive bill for water that
yeah,
they hadn't consumed, but and then trying to find the issue, and
yeah,
so that's a significant challenge for sure.
yeah. It's massive, absolutely massive. There's one particular bill that will always stand out in my mind, and
Mm.
you know, you 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 try so hard in the hospitality sector to manage your cost to the best of your ability. And like, obviously the last number of years have been extremely difficult, with rising energy costs and other costs as well. So I think the fact that these IoT sensors ultimately can help, um, it's going to transform what efficiency looks like in hospitality, in my personal opinion. I think what's incredible is, if you as a hotelier can identify the major challenges in your business at present, right?
Yeah.
You can then start to determine what areas are IoT available in. So it could be energy saving, it could be water flow management, like we just
Yeah.
spoke about.
Mm-hmm.
It could be the door lock system. I spoke with a hotelier the other day that's speaking with a door lock company where they're working in conjunction with a particular brand where they are looking to put your room key into the wallet that's on your phone.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, wow, I just think that's fantastic. So all of a sudden, my room key is in my
Yeah.
phone wallet, and it's not
Yeah.
just in my hand or on a screen that I have to open on an email. So
Yeah. Yeah.
when you start to hear how technology is evolving, you're like, God, there's always somebody working on a solution. So as a business owner, operator, general manager, whoever, financial controller, they love them, right? Identify where the savings need to be made, identify where there needs to be improved efficiency. And that ultimately is where you can start researching and sourcing solutions around IoT that are going to help your business. So what that will do is it'll help your guest experience, it'll help your employee experience, and it'll help potentially cost savings.
Yeah.
That's
100%.
profitability.
And I think that's the way to think about it. Is it's so flexible. There is
Yeah.
solutions for many, many things, right? And to help you achieve the business outcome that you're looking for in any area.
Yeah.
So like one example I heard of is like you have we know like a hotel that had a challenge around the safety of staff actually doing the
Okay.
housekeeping and the maintenance. And there is now solutions out there like wearable watches, for example, where you can press an emergency button or a panic button, but it locates you exactly where you are in the building and obviously triggers a whole workflow that it can be responded to very quickly, So there's an example of just purely a safety
Yeah.
situation. But energy costs and consumption are a huge issue on the P&L
Yeah.
for every business.
Massive. Yeah.
Like when I look at this, when we talk to customers and we look at the scale of the opportunity because of the cost that they have, I always think like, I'd love if we had this opportunity in IMS, because we run a hybrid kind of workforce. We have an office in Limerick and in Reading in the UK. And, but our energy consumption is low. All of these things are already quite low and well managed. So our business is kind of spread out. But if I had a big building like a hotel and I had all this stuff going on, and it's like multiple businesses in one, where you've got like a spa, you've got a restaurant,
Yeah.
you've got a whole laundry service running, like for example, there is massive opportunities in a business of that scale for IoT to achieve very
Yep.
positive outcomes. And I think the biggest one, if you're financially minded about it, is that energy saving piece, so the monitoring, the
Yeah.
targeted measures, and the implementation of automated controls if you need to. But often just the data and your operations team having access to that data, they'll be able to do things in a targeted manner to make very positive impact. Yeah. So it's I'm
It's
jealous of hoteliers when we talk about IoT, because there's a very good opportunity to improve the business
yeah.
performance there,
Yeah. Like and we spoke about this previously, that, IoT can better the guest experience, but what it can do for operational efficiency, for sustainability, and we're all on that sustainability
Yeah.
journey. Every one of us are, and this helps you on your roadmap. Your operational efficiency, your sustainability, cost efficiency, like the positive impact that can have on your bottom line profit is
Yeah.
just incredible, right? And yes, I appreciate these are costs. Investing in IoT is a cost, but ultimately when you're looking at that investment, you should be able to identify where the savings can be made and how quickly those savings can be made.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that's data. Like
Yeah.
IoT is providing you with data, right? And it's all available in the cloud, so you can view it all online. What you do with that data is you analyze it. And then ultimately, that's allowing you to make more informed decisions, right? And
Hmm.
when you consider the budget season and you're looking to go, okay, where am I going to invest in the next financial year? A lot like this is providing you with data, and we've spoken about data in the past regarding OTAs, etc., etc. But for me, and I think this is such a fantastic opportunity when you're looking at where the need is, you have the actual data in front of you. So you can determine where the priorities are for your investment in the next financial year. And you can continue on that roadmap year after year after year after year, because ultimately that data is only going to continue. And
Mhm.
as long as you're analyzing it, then ultimately your data is driving the decision-making process, and you're working smarter in your business.
Absolutely, yeah. I totally agree. I think that it's a real field of opportunity, and
Mm.
if the direction of travel is digital
Yep.
for the guest experience, also for the employee experience, and
Mm-hmm.
probably the employee experience is even more important than the guest in some
Yep.
respects. Because if you want to achieve resource efficiency and operational efficiency, technology can certainly help that.
Mm-hmm.
But also your employees probably work in the systems for 90% or 80% of their work shift, whereas guests might only interact for maybe 30 to 40%, maybe
Yep.
interact with some form of technology during their stay. So I do think there's a huge opportunity there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that um there is challenges in for IoT generally. Like, it's such a
Mm-hmm.
broad spectrum, and we've covered a lot of ground already. um I know that the Connectivity Standards Alliance are trying to, so they were formerly the Zigbee Alliance, which is a
Okay.
wireless communication protocol as well. They are trying to standardize the approach to IoT, like connectivity and communication, moving forward with the implementation of
Okay.
Thread and Matter. And
Okay.
the idea would be that everything can communicate on one standard protocol, or function in a similar way, regardless of the brand, or the type of
Wow.
device or whatever. I think that would be hugely helpful for
Yeah.
the industry as a whole.
Yeah.
And it's really positive to see that kind of
Mm.
convergence happening. But I would say that whatever challenge you think about in your business in hospitality, it's very likely that IoT can play some sort of a role in helping you to address that challenge. So it's really exciting from
Mm.
that perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it really is. Look, it's a fascinating area, and it's one where, there's reports out there that show you the expected growth in this area over the next 3 years. And it's significant. It's
Yeah.
very significant. But I've one last question for you,
Yes.
right? What are the emerging trends in IoT at the moment that you see? What are the emerging trends?
Yeah. I've learned a new term this week, AIoT. So the convergence of AI and IoT. If you think about it, it's a no-brainer, because your IoT devices can collect the data. Your AI platform can analyze the data for you, and identify good and bad things. So AIoT, I think, is going to be something that people are going to end up becoming a lot more familiar with over the
Yeah.
next while. That approach by the Connectivity Standards Alliance to standardize things with Thread and Matter, for example, as the protocols for IoT in the future,
Hmm.
I think that's a definite direction of travel for the industry, and I think a positive one. Um, the others would be just really that the digital experience for the guest and for the employee, it's going to enhance that, because it's so flexible in terms of what you deploy, where you deploy, the data you collect, and the interaction the control that you can implement. it's inevitable that it's just going to contribute more and more to that digitization of the hospitality experience as a whole.
Yeah.
I would say the last thing then is that just making existing buildings much smarter, much more data-rich environments, regardless of what the data is being gathered for. Like
Yeah.
if it's the footfall, occupancy, temperature, etc. So those are all the trends, and yeah, I think it's very exciting. It's an exciting space. I mean, from our point of view, we're super interested in it because of the fact that you can now connect it onto your Wi-Fi networks, and you have a whole IoT ecosystem, and you can have APIs to integrate with loads of different systems. And, there's just, the opportunities are endless, and it allows Wi-Fi move outside of just guest and operations connectivity into a space of like solving some big challenges for businesses and achieving better business outcomes for hospitality, decision makers. So it's a very interesting space.
Yeah, and you actually make a really valid point. I know I said it was my last question, but I've one more now on the basis of what you've just said. For anybody who's listening, right? Say you have a Wi-Fi network that is 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. Is that network going to be suitable for IoT? Like, what can I do now? If you have Wi-Fi 6, that is that is the infrastructure that's in place. Ultimately, it's focusing on IoT, etc. But anything before that, like
Yes,
where?
but it varies by vendor, it varies by technology, it varies by the power of the chipset. It varies in terms of some providers have modules that you can plug into access points that give you IoT
Okay.
connectivity, others don't. The later access points, when you talk about Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 7, right? The mainstream kind of top of the market hospitality technology providers are generally building IoT into the access point directly. So different sort of communication protocols outside of Wi-Fi. And that will continue to be the direction of travel. I think the likes of, those big providers of enterprise grade Wi-Fi for hospitality, they see the opportunity in IoT. So being able to connect on, having one central network for everything, for all Wi-Fi requirements, but also for all cabled requirements through the switch, and then for everything that can communicate as an IoT device. One central network and platform for everything. Bring it back into a single cloud interface. Have your API to communicate with whatever external platforms then need to be communicated with. That is the direction of travel, and most of the big ones are there. Like they have an offering in that area, and there's a big opportunity. They see it, so it's it's interesting.
Look, I think if somebody was listening to this, you have an opportunity to save with IoT. And if you look at your network and you're told, do you know what, this network isn't suitable, there's always the opportunity to see where the savings can be made, because ultimately those savings could pay for that Wi-Fi upgrade that's needed. So it's not, if you don't have the budget now, that you believe you don't have it, when you start to analyze where potentially savings can be made, you might find the budget all of a sudden. That's something just to note for anyone who's listening. Tinny, this has been an absolute pleasure. I've been so excited about this one, and thank you, because it is very vast, and we've only, I suppose, touched the top of it today with what we've gone through. So we might kick off with 3 key takeaways. And if you don't mind, I'd like to start with the one that I think is paramount with all the conversations I've had with customers recently, right? And that is data-driven decisions. By implementing this smart technology, you're able to collect data that's going to allow you to make more informed decisions for your business. You are going to be able to see where there is cost savings to be made, and ultimately your business is going to be more efficient. Your operation is going to be more efficient. There's cost efficiency. You're committed to your sustainability. Yes, the guest experience is great, but I'm just talking about what you can see as an operator. I just think it's huge, and what it can do for your business. ultimately is massive at all levels. And
Yeah.
what about you?
I think the sustainability one is a massive one, because I think that, first of all, the research shows that when you talk about the hospitality industry, there's an opportunity. There's a potentially up to 40% of energy being wasted in the building, the energy being used. Right. We all have a challenge to measure our current energy consumption, to measure where we're at from a carbon footprint perspective. We all have a challenge to reduce that, and without the measurement piece and your targeted kind of interventions, it's very hard to make significant progress. So I think on that front, IoT has a huge role to play in terms of monitoring the environment, in terms of implementing control and automation, in terms of providing data to building operators, maintenance, etc., and empowering them to make some interventions and improve things around energy consumption. So I think that's a massive takeaway for anyone listening today, is to think about that challenge that they have right now, and then talk to people who understand the role IoT can play to achieve a business outcome for them in that area.
Excellent.
And what do you think would be a good number 3?
I think with all of this technology, it's really important to remember that what it's doing is delivering an enhancement for the guest experience and the employee experience.
Yeah.
Right. And then when you look at it overall, right, what it's doing for you and your business and the positive outcomes that are being delivered, like, for me, it's a no-brainer. Ultimately, like, if this technology existed when I was a hotelier, not that long ago either, you would definitely be looking at it, because when I think about the pressures on maintenance, accommodation staff, they have a small window of time to turn around X number of rooms. When I think about what is required of a duty manager every day, a door lock. I have the scars from when door locks, the batteries would stop working, and you're looking for batteries and you're panicking. It's 10 o'clock at night. The guests can't get back into their room. Like, I have the scars to prove it. It just overall, it can just transform that overall experience for both your guest, your staff, and your business. And it can take away a lot of headaches. And I think that for me is just one of the most exciting parts of IoT. There's so many solutions out there. It's just to identify what your needs are and find the solutions.
Yeah, I agree. Totally. I agree. So I really enjoyed that session, and I think this is an area that is definitely worth exploring, and I think that hopefully today's session will help people start that journey, and maybe some people are progressing already on that journey, and we're moving pretty well. And I think that the next day we're going to cover, I think phone and voice would be important to cover for hoteliers in terms of where is the industry at right now. Is it even a requirement to have a phone for a guest anymore? Big question. And what are the options, etc. And just again, more information to empower a better decision, really, moving forward. But I think we've covered loads today, Helena. Really enjoyed it.
Likewise, and look, I'm looking forward to the phone one as well, because it's a great topic, and it's one that continues in meetings that I have on a regular basis. So I think a lot of people will benefit from this. So, Denis, thank you so much. Always a pleasure. And thank you to all our listeners.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Helena, and talk to you soon.